Hi. My computer shut off. It's old, so it doesn't hold a charge. So I got a new cord, and new cord wasn't in it. Gee, I look like a Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz with my hair is. They had to strap her breasts down uh, when um, when they were making them because had already gone through puberty and she got her breasts, so they actually had to put this stuff around her to tie her breast down. I can look at. This is the way Dorothy should have looked. Oh my god. Oh, I'm getting. I can hear myself talking. I didn't even real. I thought the whole thing just shut off. Um. I can. Oh, I. So I thought the thing must have just. It was no longer alive when the computer shut off, and then it wouldn't. I put the plug back in, but it wouldn't turn back on again. It wouldn't do anything. It's an old computer, so and it doesn't look like it doesn't look like I'm going to get new equipment. And things are going through the roof, and it'll be food before equipment, right? Anyway, so I forget where was talking about Klaus Schwab and Davos, and that they feel they have a right, that they know better, they know what's better. It could, because it's their world. It's not our world. It's their world. Even if we own the property, it's not ours. It's theirs. So the prices which are just going up and up and up. It's not going to stop, and it's going to take not just the Republicans, every Republican, but the Democrats too, to defect, to stop what's happening. And I can imagine that they all want to be part of the group that's in charge, not the underlings like we are. And little do they know that with any communist takeover, and you've got the dictator at the top, as long as you're below the dictator, your life is not spared if the dictator wants you to die. Um, it's like they don't know anything about communism. They don't know anything about uh, Hitler. And I just read just now that Trudeau is banning the sale of any new handguns. Well, the first thing Hitler did was take the guns away. And if the Jews, the Gypsies, the Jehovah Witnesses, homosexuals, Catholics, unless you're a Catholic that as long as you put the Nazi Party first, even if it's where his initials are GS, that he marched his own people to the into the ovens. As long as you put the Nazi Party first, then you're okay. See, that has to be your God. God is supposed to be below the Nazi Party. Uh, it's not going to turn out well. But that's the first thing he did, was take the guns away. And if the Jews had kept the guns, they wouldn't be able to take them. And any other minority groups, um, they wouldn't be able to take them. Uh, and he was big on abortion. He was big eugenics, abortion, sterilization. If you were half German, they would sterilize you. If you're half minority, half German, they would sterilize you. They wouldn't kill you because you're half German, but you couldn't reproduce. So it's very few. I mean, how stupid can, well, you know what? Maybe it's not stupidity, maybe it's fear. I think I can't help but think that they must feel the kind of fear that we do when we see what's going on and it's out of our control. There's nothing we can do. Um, that you jump on the bandwagon to survive. But some of them, I think, I can imagine it was handed out. Nancy Pelosi's husband was arrested for drunk driving. It would be funny if it was actually Nancy that was drunk driving. She just blamed her husband because we know she drinks. We know she's a big drinker. I think the demise of the world was sold to up and comers like Trudeau because he was schooled at the World Economic Forum, and was it Schwab brags about how many world young leaders that been schooled by him. And I think the temptation was money and power. And if you're up there and this is the way things are going, and you would get on the bandwagon like a pyramid scheme, except it's a dictator pyramid scheme. It's fascistic. It's really fascistic. It's really what it is. And then you have government, instead of owning the companies, they heavily regulate it. Like when, what you would call it? How could I forget his name? Obama got in office. He put out 22,000 regulations, which drove businesses out of the country. Either they moved or they went out of business. So everything is manufactured in countries that have no regulations on carbon emissions or pollution. Yet we're blamed for it. I don't know. The lust for power is so great. I think that it's so great that they can't turn back. They know it's either stay on this bandwagon, or else if you get off, you're going to die. You're going to get kicked to the bottom with the rest of us. And I think Trudeau is just a maniac. I think he's got some screws loose. And the only thing we can do is pray. We can vote, but we don't know if that does any good. It's like what is it anymore? And if our leaders cared that we go from abortion after birth, and they're talking about pushing it up to the child's older, and then the baby formula shortage, and they knew about it, but they did nothing. Oh yes, we knew it. We've been working on it. They haven't been doing a damn thing. And then you see things like parents who know that their children are being taught CRT, and this is going to create a lot of suicides. If you're evil because of the color of your skin, yet the people telling you that you're evil, they're white. It's just a license to be racist. It's a license, so they can be racist to Black people and minorities if they're in the wrong party. So it isn't racism. It's just simply you belong to the wrong party. I can imagine that this is already causing, aside from depression and drug use and alcohol use, suicides. Because if children are taught this, that they're evil, even though they've done nothing, they want us to destroy each other. When I first started this channel, this is one of the first things that I put out was that they want to keep their hands clean. They don't want any blood on their hands. So they're getting us to fight each other. And that way, they'll probably keep our bodies in a big pyre and just set it on fire. And then a bulldozer comes, pushes it all away, and then they build back better. That's when I started. 5 years ago that I started this channel. That's what I could just very see the road that we're going down. I saw it right away, and I said I have to start this channel. And I should have started it during the election, but I really felt that that was not going to be a clean election, because if you saw the way the Democrats were being very violent to deplorables, and nobody stands up and says, this is wrong. We can't accuse someone of something they haven't done. But the very party that's accusing us of being racist is the party of racism. It's through the election. Joe Biden just keeps spitting out racist things. He doesn't stop. Yet they voted him in, as if the party changed. The party never changed. That's the big secret. The party never changed. This party is full of racism and full of hate, and they're using the same tactics as the KKK and the rest of the fascists and communists use. It's the same playbook. Will they wake up? I don't think so. I don't think so. Is there some kind of psychosis that they're born with, or a particular leaning? Some people, you go to school when you're a kid, and some kids are bullies, and then they are not allowed to be bullies, or it's kind of dumbed down when they get out of school. You got to hold a job. Well, you can be a bully to your wife or your husband, right? They can be a bully somewhere, but this is giving them license. If you're on our side, you can be a bully. You can terrorize people. You can burn things down. You can make up these crazy things that aren't true. Remember when Obama was in office, and this was closer to the beginning. There's this no bully thing, and tell if some kid is bullied. How long did that last? They didn't last very long. Just think about Obama. I was actually I put all these tabs up, and I'm not quite sure if the sound works. There's something Obama did that I wanted to mention tonight. I don't remember what it is. But if you think he's not running the country, you've got another thing coming. He said he was going to. He said he was never going to leave when Trump got into office. He said he was going to stay in Washington, D.C. It's where he bought a house, and it was his offices. And he even said that he was going to be in control of groups around the country that were going to make sure that Trump wasn't going to get elected again. He told us this. And in an interview, they asked him, I'm still trying to find the video clip. I should have marked it. I should have put it in a playlist, but I didn't. They asked him, what would you do in your third term? He goes, well, I can't have a third term. Well, I would be somewhere maybe in the basement, and then I would talk into it, and there'd be a thing in the president's ear, and I would tell him what to say. And it sounds to me like that makes sense. And Psaki twice made a mistake saying President Obama. She corrected herself, but twice. You don't, those mistakes just don't happen. John Harrison, it's not just the wealthy and intelligentsia at the opposite end of the socio-political spectrum. The people tend to be vapid, pleasure-seeking vulgarians. True. The whole world seems to be going cuckoo. Amy says she's cuckoo too. My kids had what I'd say mild negative reinforcement while in high school, and both suffer from it. Yeah, you what's happening is that we've got the children, generations after generation seems to be broken. As it was, they were already broken, and now they're breaking the rest of them. with the CRT, with telling them in kindergarten or nursery school that they may be something else, a different gender. Uh, Teaching them. Remember this? They said uh, a woman had proposed to teach children how to practice, and that I heard. Well, that idea was voted down. Well, it actually wasn't. The world was it the WHO, and we know who funds that, don't we? Uh, we know who funds that, and he was a friend of somebody that mysteriously the cameras were turned off. And it's part of the reason why they say he got divorced, because he used to go off with his good friend. If you look at, and I have to find it, I have to go back and try to find where it is. The WHO suggests for children 0 to 4 be taught how to do that, to practice. 0 to 4. We're talking babies, not toddlers, actual babies. I remember when I was much younger, I think it was some talk show. And the only thing I can think of that where this woman got the idea, because she said that she had a son, an infant son, and she used to do something to him. And she said it right there on TV, regular TV, daytime TV. There was I forget what his first name is, but he was a doctor, and his name was Kinsey. And Hollywood made a movie about him called Kinsey, and it was starring Meryl Streep. Um, Apparently, he the movie was about how sexual freedom, how we let go of the restraints of the 50s, and we could do anything we want sexually. But I saw a documentary about him and other things that he proposed, and he said that children are certain types of beings, and they need to know love. And there was you heard, of course, the faces were in darkness, but women that were grown up and talking about what their parents did to them. And you could see these women were broken. I mean, they were really broken. And the only thing I'm thinking, I go, well, they've been trying to do this for a long time. This is how you make. Uh, they say that if a child is sexualized very young, they're sexualized and they're very young, it means that somebody did something to them. That's the sign. That's what if you go to, I've been to counselors because it happened to me. She said, no, that isn't right. That isn't the way it should be. I want to get explicit, but she said, that's not normal. Well, apparently it's going to be normal. Apparently it is normal. And you can see that these children are broke. The lockdowns broke our children. There's a little boy who committed, the family doesn't want you to call it suicide, but he did. He put a gun to his head. And he was a little kid. And you would think at a different time, we can think back in our youth, at a different time, if that happened to a child, there would be psychologists, teachers at the ready to stop this from happening again. They still, at that point, there was a time where they still cared, and it was in my own lifetime, but they still cared. If you knew if something like that happened, or somebody accused a child because they were white of being privileged or racist or evil because of the color of their skin, that the teachers, counselors, they would squash this immediately. They wouldn't let this go any further. But they're allowing this to happen, and nobody cares. So you're breaking, and there's nothing. What can a parent do other than homeschool? I would never freaking, if they're going to take your kid and then tell your kid, who can find out on its own which preference they are when they get older. Uh, School is for learning, so they can go out in the world and make the world a better place. And they are confident. You know, we want our children to be confident, and you have a good sense of self. Whereas if somebody came along and tried to be abusive to them, they'd say, no, no, I don't deserve that. These are the kind of whole kids, people that are whole inside and out, uh, instead of full of holes, which I think is what we got now. This is what you want for your child. And if not to make the world a better place, but at least find someone, raise a good family, and their children can go out in the world and make the world a better place. Just by being good people. You don't have to move a mountain. You just are good to the people around you. Because if you don't visit, if you don't have enough money to travel or to meet tons of people in your life, the people that you do meet, you affect in a positive way. Yet they're breaking all of us. And I think they want that because I think this is their way of um, getting rid of us. It's obviously people are committing suicide, children are committing suicide. Uh, there's enough, and they're letting the drugs flow over the border. There's no stopping it. It's human trafficking, sex trafficking. Um, who's getting the payoff? Somebody must be making money from this because unless they're making money, it, they would stop it instead of just doing what was right. There was a time when most of the people would do what was right. There were some leaders that would do things the right thing, even if they didn't make money on it, just to do the right thing. And I see how many generations, how big was the population that this a large part of the population has latched onto this. Definitely our leaders, because they got to the. We know who they is. We know, and that's the funny thing is that they're telling us because they don't care anymore. They're even telling us, yes, Hunter Biden's laptop was real. The Russia collusion thing was a lie. They don't care anymore that we know because we, rules for thee, but not for me. And that's what they're doing. They don't care, and we know, just like in a communist country, um, well, you're the worker drone. You're just a cell in the state, and your whole life is doing whatever for the state, and they'll off you whenever they want to. We know we're here and they're there. So, oh, they're not wearing masks. Oh, they're going out to the French Laundry more than once. And COVID, they got money. They got millions of dollars from the COVID stimulus. And my own state has billions of dollars from COVID. It's supposed to go to COVID relief, which should actually go to the schools to make all schools safe. Which, like I said earlier, it doesn't make any sense why the police didn't have a key to all the rooms. Why didn't it? How did that fall? It's a low crime community. Isn't like everybody was so busy. Why didn't they have the key? I mean, wouldn't that make sense that there should be a game plan? The whole know exactly what to do. So they had a game plan going, except the vital thing is the keys to get in. Should a shooter be locked inside? So I hear from Brandon Tatum, who was a police officer for several years. He's got a channel on YouTube, and he said that they did go in, they didn't wait, but they couldn't get into the room. Okay, so they waited outside of the room until the janitor gave them the keys, and he's all mad at everybody from his comment section. He, and he's just saying, "Go ahead, unsub, go ahead." They did their job. That isn't true. So whatever. I go, wait a second. Does this make sense to you? Why they didn't have the key? Yes, they followed protocol, but they didn't have the key, and they didn't have the shields and the body armor until was it an hour later that came? And then right after that happens, Biden signs that thing where police have less authority, and they're not going to get this military equipment for situations like this. While this is happening, while it's just like with the gas, while gas is skyrocketing and everything is skyrocketing because gas makes everything go up, uh, they decide not to give leases to the Gulf of Mexico and Alaska, and we just less and less with no respite in sight. It's like something bad happens, and then they make it worse. Remember when they said, "Oh, we're going to give you extra money uh, because of COVID, this relief. We care," and then they're not doing anything. They keep lying and saying it was Putin. Putin. Did you hear the thing about Putin? Everybody thinks that he's dying, and the Kremlin let out a statement saying that he's not dying. He does look weird. They said that he might have blood cancer. Um, my mother died of blood cancer, a rare form that they couldn't treat. I don't know what to believe. And he could be. It's true when you have um, blood cancer, there isn't enough air. You're anemic. It's getting to the brain. So mentally, you can go really off. My mother went off. She had leukemia, and she was just like mentally gone. So that would make sense why he would be starting that war. But they say apparently they've got Nazis, but the Democrats the Nazis are fighting the Russians, but the Democrats said, "Oh, but these are good Nazis. These are different kinds of Nazis." What are you talking about? I mean, we're the real Nazis. Trump is the real Hitler. What the frick are you talking about? It's so ludicrous. But anyway, the that part, I forget the name of it. The part that he's a part of Russia. People speak Russian. Their allegiances to Russia. Apparently 14,000 people died in the past 8 years because of bombing that went on from Ukraine. And we did regime change in that country, in Ukraine. And they took it off of YouTube, but then they put it back up. The woman in the Obama administration that suggested who to put in office, and of course Ukraine is where Burisma is, and was it Hunter Biden got $11 million from Burisma. So there's something so screwy about this war, and here we are. We're actually in war with Russia because we're giving them equipment. It's like our leaders are so corrupt, and there's nobody out there that's trying to stop them. And this wouldn't happen if Trump was in office. My God, that's all they did was try to take him down. All money, our money, they used. I'm sure they knew it was a lie. And all that time, they could have used making America a better place. If you if they just helped Trump or went along with it, these policies that were making America better and the world better, and the Abraham Accords, when he's out of office, we'll vote for you because you recognize what's good for the people, for the country, for the world. You recognize what's good. And even though you're a Democrat, we'll vote for you if you just do that. But it's amazing what Trump did do. And they fought him tooth and nail. I mean, you know who the enemy is. And now they like Bush. Remember, Bush was the enemy? But nothing like this. Because he was helping the people. He was helping us. And he was doing a fantastic job in a very short period of time. Can you imagine if they didn't fight him and he didn't have to pay for all these attorneys, and now he doesn't have much wealth at all. I think he left office with like $2.5 billion. And I'm sure that's because they're still fighting him. They're still trying to take him down. Can you imagine if you just worked hand in hand to make the country and the world a better place? But they had an agenda, and we know what the agenda is now. We see we have a window into Davos, and we listened to this a German guy, and they're calling Trump Hitler, and you listen to this German guy talking about what a great idea. There's a pill, you can take a pill, and we'll know everything that's going on inside under your skin, everything that's wrong with you. You're not. It's like there's no privacy. You see and you know everything that I'm doing because I'm not even human. That's how you dehumanize somebody. You make them a piece of equipment like this. This is my broken cell phone. You take the back off. You can look at the insides. Let's figure out what's wrong with this equipment. This is an inanimate object. We're human beings, and they're teaching us to be and to know that we're inanimate objects. And there's no hiding it. We're seeing clips. Oh, here, this is Bill Gates, yeah, saying that he was disappointed when the variant of Omicron was giving better immunity. Of course, we've never had a sickness that there wasn't therapies for, there wasn't immunity after you got it. We've never had anything like that. Oh no, only boosters, and we're finding out a lot about boosters. If you don't take it, then you lose your job. Your name is mud. It was the nurses and doctors that worked through the pandemic. First they were frontline workers. We put them on a pedestal, right? Or they put them on a pedestal. How fantastic! Oh, they were great, and all of a sudden, no, you don't. You're not going to take but you got it, and you have natural immunity. Well, if you don't take this, then not only do they lose their job, but they are blacklisted from working as a nurse or a doctor anywhere else. What is wrong with this? What is wrong with this? My state, they've got the money for the COVID relief, which they're not giving to anybody, and they're giving raises to the judges and the clerks who work for the judges, and the judge is a judge that let an illegal alien who did a crime, I forget what the crime was, she let him out the back door. So she's been taken off for a few years. She hasn't been working, but she's been getting paid, and she gets the raise. She still gets the raise. The state police, in my state, the state police, there was a guy who was stealing money and equipment, state trooper. And so he's also on leave and getting paid. Yet the state troopers that worked through COVID, they're mandatory. You either get fired and blacklisted, dishonorable discharge, or get the vaccine. I don't even know what that thing does. Personally, I don't even know what the thing does. Well, apparently there's one of the troopers was a woman. Is a woman. She's no longer working anymore. She wants to have children. She doesn't want to take. She doesn't know. Nobody knows what it's going to do. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And she took the badge. She was given the badge that her father had, who died on the force, and she is now discharged dishonorably. No, what do you call it? Unemployment, nothing. Yet they all worked through COVID. They all worked as frontline workers. They all worked through COVID. Yet the guy who was stealing stuff, is still getting paid. Where are our leaders? Where are our leaders? Why? They need to all stand up and just say, no, we can't do this. They're human beings. Yes, we vote ourselves pay. They all vote themselves pay raises, of course. But we can't we're human beings, and yes, we vote ourselves pay raises. Yes, we haven't really been doing anything for the people. But we know they repeated all the lies about Russia, Russiagate. And they keep saying things that cause one segment of the population to hate the other side and the leader. So if something happens and you get hurt, let's say just to go so far as say hurt, they'll say, well, they were on that other side. The Islamophobe, homophobe, xenophobe, deplorable, not even human. Like it's fascistic. That's what Hitler did. He called the Jews vermin, and you have to get rid of vermin because they spread disease. The it's a plague of the anti-vaxxers, of the people who don't want to get vaccinated. We're vermin. We're vermin because you want everybody to be prosperous, get a good education. As Trump did, gave more money to black schools and black colleges than anybody, than any president before anybody. There's no way in God's green earth I can be a Democrat. You just know too much. See, wait a second, I'm not going to be a party that's causing violence. Oh, you were the party of the KKK. Not anymore. I read an article in the New York Times that was about the 1924 Democratic Convention. The KKK held a rally and marched down Main Street right into the Democratic Convention. And this is just like when you read about, I think it was an article for PBS, about how Native Americans enslaved other Native Americans, but they add a little thing at the bottom, but it's not racial. Oh, since they're the same race, it's okay. That's okay. Okay, it's not race. I'm glad they put that in the article. It's not. It's kind of like, okay, so if your family enslaves you, I thought there's a problem with that. If your family enslaves you, that's even closer than race, right? If the same race. I forget what I was about to say. Anybody know what I said about before I mentioned the Native Americans? Oh yeah, the KKK. And this, I should have put this link somewhere, but I'm sure if you just type in 1924 Democrat Convention, KKK, held a rally, marched down. If you type that in, that's how I found it. And apparently, the let's see, 85% were belonged to the KKK. But it said that there was these other uh, politicians, and a few people asked, "Hey, wait a second, are you the party of the KKK?" Well, it was only they were the KKK, but there were some that weren't. So there were some in the party that weren't, but 85-90% of it belongs to the KKK. But because this is how the New York Times was phrasing it, because there were some that weren't, that's the real Democrat Party. The other people that make the majority of the Democrat Party up, they're not really the Democrats. If you were not a member of the KKK, and we know what they did, and 1/3 of all the people they lynched were white Republicans, because if you were against the Democrat Party, Republican against it, you also got lynched. And they also had a platform of they wanted to take all the guns away. You see, they wanted to keep the guns. You see, they wanted to keep the guns, but they didn't want the freed slaves, the freed slaves, yeah, to have guns. They didn't want the blood because when they came at night, they wanted to be able to lynch them and burn down everything that they owned. And Condoleezza Rice was on The View, and I don't watch The View, but I saw just her segment, and she put forward, and this is the reason why not only should the population be able to keep guns, she doesn't believe anybody should know who actually has the guns. Because she said if her grandfather, I think her father, it was apparently it was at 1968, I think, was when the last lynching happened in the South, which FDR, who appointed the first open member of the KKK to the Supreme Court, first open member. Why would the Democrat Party do that? Wasn't he for poor people? But he loved fascism. He sent the brain trust over to Italy to find out all about fascism. He loved it. So it kind of makes sense. Everything kind of makes sense. Well, he wanted the New Deal signed because he wanted to get all the poor people and the free slaves back because they were Republican. And he let the Depression last much longer than it should have. He kept because they wanted the people to suffer. Oh, gee whiz! Wait a second. What's happening today? He could have ended the Depression, but he wanted and he had, was it 4 terms in office? He wanted the people to suffer, and so what happened was when he said, "Okay, the government's going to give you a job. Now it's time for a job." He created these jobs, which everybody thought was wonderful, but he starved you and made you suffer to a point that people who were freed slaves and people who were against the Democratic Party because of all that they were so poor. See, it's us people at the bottom, not the rich going down, but it's the middle class poor going to the bottom. Went to the Democrat Party because they were the helping hand, give you a job, finally your family will be under a roof, maybe have a change of clothes every other year. That's how he did it, and how he got the Democrats in the South to sign the New Deal into law was that he promised them not to make lynching illegal in the South. How much blood That was signed, the New Deal was signed in blood. And he made you suffer. It's exactly what's happening now. It's exactly what's happening now. Isn't it? It's the same freaking tactic. I remember when Obama got in office, and it was a cover, I think it was Time magazine. He's sitting in a open top, a convertible limousine, and he's got a hat on his head and a cigar in his mouth and glasses. They dressed him up. Well, they computerized, dressed him up to make him look like FDR. Obama's the new FDR. The Democrat Party, oh, that's the old Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is still putting up as their god a guy whose hands were very, very dirty and full of blood. And I remember, of course, it's not that long ago that Obama was elected, but I looked at it, I said, holy cow. I looked at that and I go, holy, most people, I'm sure, looked at that cover. In fact, one of my videos, I put that picture of that cover in. I forget what video it is. Most of my videos, over 400, are on private. I've taken down. I have like a little over 100 up. In one of my videos, I found that picture, and this is what they're doing. It's the same playbook. But FDR got it. See, what they did is that FDR, Truman took over, he dropped the bomb, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. And then Eisenhower became president. And the people, see, free and fair elections. We still had, the we don't know what, I mean, I don't trust anything anymore. But we elected Eisenhower. Well, I say we, obviously it wasn't there yet. But Eisenhower warned us of the military-industrial complex. And here's a guy who's a 4-star general. Was it 5-star general? I forget. My father's going to come back from the dead and hit me over the head. Oh my God. For not knowing what the top general is. And I worked for a general. Military intelligence. It's the same thing, but we got out of that for a little while. And maybe they thought they would let, Eisenhower was a Republican. They'd let him in office because he's a general. He must love war. I'm trying to think, how did he get elected and how did he stay there? I don't think they realized that he saw the truth. He knew the truth, and he warned us. I don't think they were expecting that. So they did it again. They're doing it again. They probably still do this. So Carter, he said that they told us that the oil and gas were running out. And so every other day, if you had an odd or an even number, if your license plate ended in an odd or an even number, even if your tank was empty, you had to go and get your thing filled. And they used to have these things back then. They were made out of metal, and they would carry gallons of gas. Then you have to get your friend to drive you to the gas station if your car didn't move because you couldn't get gas because you're wrong or whatever. So, and he changed speed on the highway to 55. Oh, the highway. Oh, that's another thing. In my town, there are at least 2 bridges that I've walked under because I walk wherever I go. And I couldn't afford a taxi last year, let alone this year. And you could see that the pillars are cracked. And the do-nothings, Buttigieg, we didn't know he was off with his, the adopted kids or something. And he was just laughing. It doesn't matter. He had no answer for the issue with the transportation. He's the transportation secretary. and the boats are like filled up in the harbor, and he's like, and then Granholm, well, what are you going to do about rising gas prices? I don't know. What's the price of gas? I don't know. Oh my God. They're literally just taking the money and doing nothing. He said, oh, well, of course you're not fixing the transportation sector. You're not fixing the highways. He said that the highways were racist. Highways are racist. How in freaking God's name are the highways racist? People, all sorts of minorities, and the people coming over the border were using the high. Oh, we're flying them around too, but some people get bussed. We're using those highways to get the people who are legally coming over the border into the country, so we don't have enough money to give to the poor Americans or the homeless Americans. We have to make sure that because what they do is they put them directly into housing. It's my state, it's an old army barracks, that they renovated it, they put them there, and then you have to have an address, because if you don't have an address, they don't know where to send the stuff to. Oh, okay, this is where you are. We've got housing, permanent housing for you, Section 8 housing or EBT card, everything. And there is no Section 8 housing. I've been on Section 8 housing on the list for about 5 years. It was 2 years when I filled it out. Trump just got elected. I filled it out, and he said 2 years. And then I called. It had been a few years. 10-year wait. And now it's indefinite. Because there is no housing, and there never will be. Because we have the privilege being born. We're privileged Americans. It's Saki that said that we have first world problems, not third. Soon it's going to be. We're going to have that taste of the third world very soon. Yeah, so you have the privilege as an American citizen to starve to death and die homeless on the streets of America. Well, at least it's not in a third world country, which it will be soon. And when those sewer pipes, that one thing, the sewer pipes alone, the sewer pipes are going to explode, because once the population of a city gets bigger, you have to put in new sewer pipes. Oh, deflating. Fed Chair Jerome Powell has the same professed don't know, don't care attitude about money printing. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think. Hey, Joe Manchin, is Joe Manchin going to save us? Is Joe Manchin? Why doesn't he run for president? I don't know. There isn't enough. And Sidney Powell and her fire hose and the Kraken. Oh my! I was in the bathroom. I think I was doing my hair or something like that. Not as good as Lori Lightfoot does. She's a glamour gal, and she had her hair done when nobody could go to the hairdressers. And so Pelosi, she's a glamour gal. I heard. What the hell did I hear? I know. I hear these things. I'm in the bathroom. The TV's on. I can hear it. I don't know. I know. It's like I think that we could do a better job running this country. We sure could. Anybody with common sense. Well, I'm not sure how to do it, but I know we should take care of these people, and we should definitely lower inflation, and energy should be cheap, because people are going to starve to death. Yeah, how many things? I said in one of my videos, I said that you have no idea. Everything around you there's petroleum products. You have no idea. Of course, fertilizer. And they told you that fossil fuel, I've got to get off of it. How are we going to get off it? I thought, what's it? Manure? Is manure, or you are going to? They've got this machine up in Iceland that's sucking the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So we really shouldn't worry about it. And they're taking the carbon that they're sucking out, and they're sending it to farmers for their crops. So how bad is this carbon dioxide? How bad is it? I've told you it was a nutrient. Botany journals. It's a nutrient. But it's only certain, because like GMO seeds, and there's a certain guy who's got billions that has his hand in that. Farmers in India, because of this, you have to buy the seeds, and they can't use the seeds from the year before. We're committing suicide at an alarming rate. I think something changed. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they were committing suicide. No, you can't live in a world like this. Only these people eat, and you can only use these seeds. Oh, you don't have fertilizer? Well, we only have so much that we're sucking out of the air. We should have a lot of it. If the world has got too much carbon, you should have a lot of it. And the world is actually greener now. The world is actually greener than it has been. Just keep planting trees. The trees are also responsible for rainfall too. Forget there's something that they let, some kind of gas that they let go that helps cloud formation. So just friggin' plant trees. That's the first thing I heard. Carbon? What are you talking about? Sting. Where's Sting? First time I heard of this. Plant trees. Replant the rainforest. That's all you need to do. No, we have to starve everybody to death. We need to get rid of certain segments of the community. These communities, these vermin, we have to get rid of. I think, wake up. If they don't wake up, I mean, our leaders need to wake up and say, we can't do this. But you know what? You can't do that under a Nazi regime, because somebody's going to squeal. Somebody's going to squeal, and you're going to be bye-bye. But anyway, Memorial Day. They saved the world. They spilt their blood. And they were young. And most of them were young and white. There was black regiment, yes, but the majority white. So how evil could these people be? Men, evil white men. How evil could they be? They saved the world, not for themselves, because if they didn't get blown up, either they came back harmed in some way. I used to work with people, World War II veterans who had lost their minds, Vietnam veterans, and also Korea. And I would listen to them. I would give them free stuff because they would get their money. They would get their money on Monday, and they would spend the whole thing. They would have no more money left for the rest of the week. So I used to give them free cigarettes, something, free food, anything. They would smoke like chimneys. But I would listen to them. I talked to them, and not one of them manhandled me. They all respected. They used to call me Marilyn Monroe, but not one of them did anything. They were, I suppose, they would say that even though they were technically insane, they could have done anything. See, there's a different kind of insanity there, huh? And there's a certain noble that they learn something from their parents that raised them back then. And you will never find their like again. And I was 16 years old, and I was completely, they even say, put a kiss here, plant one on here. And I would give them a kiss on the cheek. They didn't do anything to me. Or they say, show me your leg, Marilyn. Okay. And it was just fun. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, those guys were harmless. They were good men that were harmless. Pray. If I'm too tired to a prayer tonight. A guide. Maybe I will in the future do some kind of guided prayer, just to put more love and good energy into the world. If you don't believe in a God, just sit there and be peaceful and just imagine things that make you happy, that bring you peace, and just make the world, the area around you, nicer. and be good to your fellow person of this world. Affect the world in little ways, but in good ways. Don't get taken advantage of, but and maybe you'll be able to give some wisdom to somebody out there that may be leaning Democrat, what the truth is, because you know that the history books are being rewritten. The things that I can't even find on the web anymore that I used to be able to pull up. There's a lot of good stuff about Trump. It's scrubbed. The truth. People need to know the truth. And as long as we remember, kind of like Camelot. Did you ever see the musical? Anybody ever see the musical Camelot? Did you ever see the musical Camelot? Rob, did you ever see Camelot? We know the story where Camelot was this perfect place where summer lasted long into September and spring came early. It just was perfect. And Merlin taught Arthur. And he knew the future because he lived backwards in time. And Guinevere was Merlin warned him, don't marry Guinevere. Guinevere, his wife, ended up cheating with Lancelot du Lac, who's the knight of the Round Table. And of course, obviously, and she had to be, they had to take her, and they put her in a convent. Then they took her out, and they were going to burn her to death. But Lancelot comes and saves them. And King Arthur is old. Merlin leaves halfway through it because he gets frozen in ice by a Morgan Le Fay. There's a Morgan. Nimue, or is it Nimue? He thinks he's going to have to spend love with this beautiful woman for the rest of his days. But she's a magical being, and she freezes him. She does. You see, he can't do any more good. He can't help Arthur anymore. He can't help Camelot. He can't help the world. They froze him, which I think is interesting. It's a very interesting metaphor for today, where the guy who would have helped us and saved us, and the last noble person, King Arthur, everything in the kingdom is crashing down. And there was a young boy that during the fighting and the blowing up and the battle and the killing and the blood, he makes his way to Arthur, finds Arthur, and he wants to know about Camelot. And he goes, "How do you know about Camelot?" And he said, "The stories people tell." And he realizes that the memory of Camelot, of this perfect place, it was brought down by what? Pleasure. People who couldn't control their pleasures and did what they wanted to do, even though it was going to break people's hearts and destroy a kingdom. Sexual deviance. Kind of like what's happening now. And Mordred, which is Arthur's somebody, he slept with somebody, I think it was Morgan Le Fay. And she, unbeknownst to him, had his child. And he was evil. And he's the one who's fighting Arthur to take everything away. So you see the good older man and his son, his offspring, was evil. And so he said, he goes, "I want to fight for you. I want to fight for Camelot." And he goes, "You're too young. You're too young. You're a boy." He doesn't want him to die. And he said, "You go and run behind the lines. And you don't forget. And you tell people about what we had here. Because if people know what we had and what made it so great, maybe it will be again." And I don't know who this character is, but he said, "Arthur, who's that?" He says, "Just a drop in the great big motion of a sunlit sea." but some of them, those drops do sparkle. They do sparkle. And he raises, I got my sword over there. He raises up his sword and said, "Run, boy, run, boy." That was hope. That little boy was hope. Everything's falling apart because of evil. And Merlin, who could save things, is frozen in ice because the seduction of sex, just sex, what's happening today. Uh, that one hope, and Arthur dies, and after that, he gets killed. And but that one boy, that was hope. Um, so it means that there's some people that remembered what was and what could be. So maybe after the destruction falls, maybe something rises from the ashes. So I'll leave you with that, and I'll be taking out that part. Maybe I'll try to edit other parts too. That's blank. I had no idea that that the thing still. I thought when the computer, because the battery doesn't hold a charge, I thought it had shut everything off, and then I went to check my phone just to see what the recording looked like, and I saw that it's still live. Notice how I shut all my lights out, except these are my bees here, and the reason why there's bees is because these are associated with a saint. Her name is Saint Rita, and Saint Rita, for some reason, this miraculous bees come around her, and that's when bees come around, it's kind of like a sign of hope. And she's patron saint of the impossible. St. Jude is patron saint of things despaired of, patron saint of the impossible. And Saint Rita wanted to be a nun, but she was forced to marry this guy who was extremely abusive, beat her up all the time. She had 2 sons, but the husband was killed by somebody. I forget. I read by her biography ages ago, and her sons wanted to find vengeance for their father's death, so they were going to kill them. And Saint Rita prayed. She said that there's no changing their minds. She knew that they were going to pray to God. It would be better if God took them instead of them commit murder. Well, that's what happens. Mysteriously, they both died. And then she was able to go to the convent, and there was the bees that were hovering around the gate. The gate in this particular convent was always locked, and the bees came. The door opened up, and so she is. I remember when I was living in California, I found this particular saint. I was in San Francisco, and my husband was at some kind of convention that I wasn't allowed to go to. But I walked to St. Peter and Paul's Church, and that's the church that Marilyn Monroe married Joe DiMaggio in. And I started walking around, and I saw this front. Basically, the front of the church is actually the back of the church, where the altar is actually the front of the church. And so I saw this room. It was a very dark room, and I walked into it, and there's huge statues in the dark, and one of them was Saint Rita. And because Columbus Avenue and Chinatown are together, the Little Italy and Chinatown are both together. So Saint Rita Margherita was her name, and she's an Italian saint. And I read it, and it said that she was an abused wife, and that's what I was going through. I mean, my husband was trying to kill me. So don't just beat me and try to kill me. And I just wander into this room and find this saint, patron saint of the impossible. So I learned about her and I prayed to her, and I did get out. I didn't pray for anybody's death. I just found a way home, which was actually kind of miraculous how I even got on a plane with no money. But anyway, the bees are for her, or to honor, to remind us that there's hope and the impossible can still happen. So that's why I got these bee lights, and they're the only lights that I have on. And this is This is what do you call it? A scarf, and it's got poppies all over it. And poppies are the flower for Memorial Day. So it's kind of like a little bit. And of course, that's a picture of Secretariat winning the Triple Crown. And he was a red horse, and the silks were blue and white, red and white and blue horse. He won in 1973. And the country was depressed, very depressed, because of Vietnam and then Watergate. Oh, God, if we only just had Watergate, which was literally nothing the more you learn about what really happened. So he took us out of that depression, and he won the Triple Crown. And in all three races, he set records that still stand today, which is like impossible. Oh my God! I just realized Saint Rita is patron saint of the impossible. What he did was impossible. They told him, they call him Impossible Secretariat, because the way he won his races, horses don't run that way, and they can't. Like the when a horse, how a horse usually runs, is that what happens is when they get towards the finish line, they have one sprint in them, and then they coast to the finish. And the reason why horses get in front is because the other horses are starting to tire and get pulled back. So if you run too fast a sprint at the beginning of the race, the horse is cooked, is not going to win. And horses don't gain speed as the race goes on. They don't. He in the first race, the Kentucky Derby, he goes around. First time he goes around, they go around the turn, he's going 38 miles an hour. Second time, 36 miles an hour. And the last stretch of the Kentucky Derby is the fastest last quarter that's ever been run. Just doesn't. Second race is the Preakness Stakes, and you never ever see a horse do a sprint or on the first turn. The first turn, they just started the race. Oh yeah, in both races he started in back. He was in back. He used to lean against the back of the stall. And he had so many muscles, he had to run hard every day with weights, which they're lucky if they get one or two workouts before a race now. They totally baby them. But if he didn't race in the morning, which horses are not good in the morning, he would with 133 pounds, he would race faster in the morning than older horses. Horses, when they get older, they're actually better as they get older than older horses do in the afternoon. So he would go start from the back, and then he's like gaining speed, and so he's Preakness. He's behind. He's the last one again, and then on the first turn, which is basically the beginning of the race, he moves to the side and goes around the horses, and it's like the other horses are standing still. And like, you never do that because you cook the horse. That's your sprint. It wasn't a sprint. And he held the finish. He held the lead. Unbelievable. Both those races, the Kentucky Derby, Preakness. That's why he's saying the way he ran was impossible, and he never coasted to the finish. In fact, he could run longer races. And then in the Belmont Stakes, he's at right in the beginning. Belmont Stakes is a mile and a half. And I'm trying to tell you that I can't believe I just realized the impossible. St. Rita's patron saint of the impossible. I got the lights on top of the Secretariat. I'm thinking to myself, maybe there's some hope here. Maybe there's some kind of miracle going on, some hope here. Because I didn't even realize I did that. Anyway, that's what he's called. The Impossible Secretary. He did the impossible. That's one of his names. So you don't, because the Belmont is long, it is, you pace yourself in the beginning. And then at the end, that's when you run, because it's a long race. And then the race started about 5 o'clock, which was much harder. Now they have them starting at 7 or a little after 7 to make it cooler. It was in the 90s, mid 90s, humid, hot as hell. there was a storm coming, a big thunderstorm. So there was a lot of winds, heavy winds blowing down the track. So he's like going to be running against wind. And it's just, the heat is, I have no idea. It's like when you see other races and what horses can't do and they can't put up with, what he did. So he runs at 3/4 of the race is 1:09 2/5, 1:09 2/5, and that's the fastest 3/4 ever run in the Belmont. He's already, and the horses are behind him. The horses are like 15 feet behind him. And then he takes off and he's just getting more and more, and more, and then it's oh, there's this connection actually to Trump. Um, Trump says the word tremendous a lot. I had a feeling he liked Secretariat. I just had a feeling. I didn't know he liked racing either. Before the Belmont started to run, Chick Anderson's the greatest call ever in horse racing, called by Chick Anderson. And he goes, now we're waiting for this tremendous Belmont, to watch the tremendous Belmont Stakes. He used that word twice in the Belmont Stakes. For some reason, I said Trump wants to win the election the way Secretariat ran the Belmont. I just had a feeling. I just had a feeling. I knew it. I just knew it in my bones. Anyway, so the horses start to drop back. They're dropping back, and because they can't take the heat, they can't take the pace. This is impossible. And then he keeps gaining lengths, and then the Chick Anderson says, seeing that he's gaining speed, he goes, he's moving like a tremendous machine. Tremendous twice, the second. And then he says, but Secretariat is all alone. And it's like, the second great thing that he said was, he's moving like a tremendous machine, the greatest call in horse racing. And then the second thing I think that I find measurable, but nobody's really picked up on, and he's into the stretch. He's running the race by himself. These guys are he's in the stretch alone. This is unbelievable. And he's into the stretch. I'm going, don't you realize that you've never heard that in horse racing? And so first Chick Anderson didn't know it was such a big margin that he won by. And he said 25, but it could be more. And it turned out to be 31 lengths that he won by. And he did not coast to the finish. Ron Turkert stands up, and which tells him to slow down. So Secretariat slows down the second he passes the finish line. And he ran out another eighth of a mile, which would have been 1 mile and 5/8. He unofficially broke the record for 1/8 and 1 mile 5/8. Had he only, if it was 2 miles, he would have been going faster and faster. It's like it's right before, in front of your eyes. You see how this horse ran, what he did. It's like, it isn't like, oh, that's just myth and legend. It's not. We still have the tapes. You could see what he did. And I pray to God, for Trump to win, to save America. And I even said, Secretariat, if you're in heaven, I know. I said that energy, what you had when you won the Triple Crown, that magic that you had, that miracle, that impossible feat. And I said, oh, I want him to win. He won by 31 lengths, so maybe he won 310 electoral votes. I was thinking, I was maybe that's it. Okay, I'm going to hope for that. And then I wasn't listening to the radio, I wasn't watching the TV, and I heard the guy on the radio was in the room saying that Trump won. And I turn the TV on. My father comes downstairs, and then Trump starts to talk, and then he talks rents Priebus. He starts talking about rents. You know why I'm talking about rents? Where are you? And then before he calls rents on the stage, he said that, when you go to the Belmont and you see that big, beautiful bronze statue of Secretariat, they don't give that to you if you come second place. And I'm going, holy shit. He said on Fox News, I still can't find the clip, but it's gone now. Maybe you could find it. In the corner was the time. In the corner was the time. And he said that exactly at 3:01 in the morning. Of course, 1 is 0. If you like to know anything about numeral numbers, 3 and 1 are the only numbers there, right? At 3:01, he says Secretariat's name. And we, oh my God! Oh my God! And this is a miracle. So patrons say the impossible, the bees, impossible Secretariat. Secretary they considered him a red, white, and blue horse for America. And that's, you know, that's what we need. We need him again. We really do. Anyway, maybe that's a sign. I'm just gonna hope that's a sign, And I didn't even realize it. Like, putting two things together with Sadie's the horse. But when I'm dying, I want to see Secretariat cross the finish line with the Belmonts. Like, if there's no heaven, there's no God, there's no heaven. That's the last thing I see. And so I just want to close my eyes and have that last, because I'll never be able to see that again, But if there is a heaven, Secretariat, he's the horse that God built. If God were to make a horse, because he had perfect proportions, and he was the closest thing to a perfect racehorse that ever was. And maybe one of the things you get to do in heaven is to ride Secretariat in the Belmont and to feel what Ron Turcotte felt. Incidentally, Ron Turcotte, not long after, he was racing on a horse. Obviously, he was racing. He was a jockey on a horse. That was Secretariat's jockey for most of his races. Lucian Lauren, the trainer, said to Ron, "Don't fall off. I had a dream last night that you fell off the Secretariat." And he was afraid that was going to happen. Nobody had any idea the Secretariat was going to do what he did in Belmont. And what happened was, later on, Ron Turcotte was racing another horse at Belmont Park. On that same race course, but not the Belmont Stakes, but on Belmont, on the same racetrack that he ran Secretariat. And he fell off and became a paraplegic. So he did fall off. So it's like a little bit of psychic, So I think when things are really, really, really big, we can feel them. A lot of us get the feeling because it's going to reverberate throughout time. It's something that's so big it affects all of us, but it's really kind of sad. But anyway, let's keep for the happy notes. And I've got a whole playlist on my channel. When Pegasus walked the earth, they called him Pegasus. It's another name. They called him Pegasus because he looked like he was flying. Anyway, you can watch some videos on Secretariat. I think there's one close to the end that has all three races. They don't tell you the time, but all three races in the best footage that you can, they improve the footage because I think the original footage was held at Belmont and it burned down, and the only thing we have is like crummy, crappy videotape. But somebody had worked on it and made it much clearer. So if you want to experience that, go on my playlist When Pegasus Walked the Earth, and you'll, if you're depressed or times when I'm really depressed, I will watch those three races before I go to sleep, so I don't go to sleep depressed. Like, it just lifts me up. Anyway, pray for America, and maybe we'll do some prayers, meditation. Just to. Everybody needs to be lifted up just to get through this. And maybe there is hope. Maybe Secretariat is responsible. There he is. I was going to give that to my father, but he died. I didn't give that to my father. Anyway, good night and God bless you and thank you. Hi, Amy Joyce. Thank you for listening for this long and for staying through the. I had no idea. I took everything down. I shut all the lights off. Uh, it's not bad. With my little ring light. It's not. It's the light. I don't look like hell. I looked like hell in my last live stream, but I said a lot of stuff that might be too delicate to keep. You know what I mean? But here it is, a little bit of light, so I'm not as bad as I thought I was. Anyway, the see my bed. This is my bed, and one thing, the mattress on top is sliding off, and it's also caving in. That side caved in, and this is only a mattress that you can't turn over. Only has one side. It's really cheap. So I'm sitting there in my other video, and I'm like sitting on a slant, so my body looks. And the I've got this on books, and it was too low. So it's like when you get the look, like all of a sudden you got this pea head and everything is off. So I see that I don't look so bad with just a little bit of light. Good. Oh, there's hope for tomorrow. Anyway, get to know Secretariat if you and if you are inclined to pray, um, ask ask the intercession. We pray. Saints don't do the miracles. God does the miracle, but you ask the saint because the reason why saints become saints is because like 3 prayers are attributed to them, so it'd be 3. Uh, that means they're in heaven. We have to know though they didn't go to the other place, right? You know that they're in heaven, communion of the saints with God. So if they're up there with God, and God sends you pray, and God sends the miracle because of the virtues and the goodness of the saint, having lived such a good life. And then saints, we have saints to imitate their lives. So we're human, we make mistakes, we're rotten, but we can aspire to greatness. We can aspire to, by because they were just human, just like us, full of failings, human failings, except they came out of themselves and they did great things. They aspired to a certain perfection. And sometimes, like something about their lives, we can identify with. So that's why we feel, sometimes if we don't feel like we can go straight to God, we can go to a friend in heaven that's close to God. And that's kind of what the meaning, and then we can aspire to this ourselves. We don't have to say I'm just human and I'm going to be a sinner and I'm going to be in the mud. That we can do great things. We can do miraculous things, even though we're human, and sometimes in little ways. But it moves mountains. But anyway, so if you want to look up Saint Rita, patron saint of the Apostle, and Secretariat. Okay, see you all soon, and pray that tomorrow we find hope. And some our politicians, Democrat and Republican, say no. We're going to help the people. We can't go on like this. This is what's going on is wrong. And maybe I'll get a call from Klaus Schwab. There's a tunnel under the water, a black tunnel that we're going to take you and we're going to shove you in and freeze you in there just like Merlin. Okay, good night, everyone. Thank you for joining. Good night, Mad Dog. Good night, Every Joyce. Good night, Deflating Atheist, or Eeyore. That's your name. Good night. Thank you. Thank you for staying through. Bye-bye. Let's see. Okay. There we go.